When we think of kindness, it's often seen as the act of giving, of showing up for others, of extending a helping hand, of putting someone else's needs before our own. Kindness is a quality we're encouraged to foster and develop, and we learn from an early age that being kind is a social virtue that connects us to others and builds trust. But there is an essential distinction. We often overlook the difference between genuine kindness and self-sacrifice. It's easy to confuse the two, but in reality, they have vastly different impacts on our lives and relationships. Kindness that is rooted in generosity and honesty can be transformative, while kindness that comes from self-sacrifice can be depleting and ultimately damaging to both ourselves and the people we care about. Genuine kindness arises from a place of abundance. It comes from a sense of inner strength, confidence, and clarity about who we are and what we can offer. This kind of kindness is about giving freely without expecting anything in return, without hidden resentments or expectations. When we are kind in this way, we feel energized, connected, and fulfilled. Genuine kindness doesn't come with an invisible price tag that drains us of our energy or leads us to feel undervalued. It's the kind of kindness that reinforces our boundaries and our values because it comes from a place of integrity and self-respect. It's not about constantly saying yes to everything or everyone just to avoid conflict or to keep others happy at our expense. On the other hand, there's a form of kindness that becomes synonymous with self-sacrifice. This is the type of kindness that drains us, that demands we put others first no matter how it affects us, and that teaches us that saying no is somehow a sign of failure, or worse, selfishness. When kindness is based on self-sacrifice, it's often driven by a need for approval, a fear of confrontation, or an unconscious belief that we're only valued when we're doing something for someone else. This form of kindness can create deep-seated resentment, both toward ourselves for giving too much and toward others for taking advantage of our goodwill. Instead of building genuine connection, kindness rooted in self-sacrifice can lead to emotional exhaustion and bitterness. Many of us fall into the trap of self-sacrificing kindness because we confuse it with genuine kindness. We might believe that if we don't go out of our way to accommodate others, they'll think less of us or judge us as selfish. We worry that saying no to someone else's request will somehow make us a bad person. But this perspective fails to recognize that kindness is only truly valuable when it's given freely, with respect for both ourselves and others. When we sacrifice ourselves in the name of kindness, we're not actually being fair to anyone, least of all ourselves. Self-sacrificing kindness can often mask a fear of vulnerability and discomfort. Sometimes the easiest way to avoid uncomfortable emotions is to comply with others' requests, even if they don't align with our own needs or desires. But the more we do this, the more disconnected we become from our true selves. Each time we compromise our own boundaries, we lose a bit of the trust we have in ourselves. We begin to question our own worth, wondering if we are only lovable when we're giving to others, even at our own expense. In relationships, self-sacrificing kindness can also create unhealthy dynamics. When one person consistently puts their needs aside for the sake of the other, it can create a cycle of dependency and expectation that becomes difficult to break. Instead of building a foundation of mutual respect and support, the relationship starts to rely on one person's willingness to give up their needs. Over time, this erodes the foundation of trust and mutual respect that every healthy relationship needs. Rather than fostering genuine connection, this kind of kindness creates an imbalance where one person's needs are always prioritized over the others. Genuine kindness, on the other hand, is based on mutual respect, honesty, and a willingness to be true to oneself. It's about understanding that we are not responsible for everyone else's happiness, nor are we obligated to always say yes just because it's what someone else wants to hear. Real kindness requires us to show up authentically, and sometimes that means setting boundaries that others may not like. It means being honest about what we can and cannot give, and being willing to say no when something doesn't serve us or align with our values. It's a kindness that stems from a place of self-awareness and self-compassion, a kindness that recognizes our own needs as valid and important. When we practice genuine kindness, we are able to give from a place of abundance without resentment or hidden expectations. This type of kindness doesn't deplete us, instead, it strengthens us. It allows us to build connections based on mutual respect and trust rather than obligation or guilt. When we give kindly without self-sacrifice, we create relationships that are stronger and more sustainable. We no longer feel as though we must be constantly giving to prove our worth. Instead, we know that our worth is inherent. and that kindness is a choice we make out of love, not obligation. This understanding of kindness can be freeing. It allows us to let go of the need for approval and to trust that we are enough, even if we're not constantly going above and beyond for others. It frees us to say yes only when it feels right and to say no without guilt or fear. And perhaps most importantly, it allows us to treat ourselves with the same kindness and respect that we extend to others. We become kinder to ourselves by honoring our own needs, by setting boundaries, and by embracing the idea that kindness, when given freely and genuinely, is the most powerful and sustainable form of connection. So rather than thinking of kindness as something that requires self-sacrifice, consider redefining it as an act of self-respect and integrity. Instead of giving until you have nothing left, give with intention, with clarity, and with love. Setting boundaries to protect your well-being is a crucial act of self-respect and care. Many people shy away from establishing boundaries, fearing they may appear selfish or unkind. However, boundaries are not about pushing others away or being inconsiderate. They are about creating space where we can thrive, preserving our energy, and ensuring we can continue to show up for others in meaningful ways. Without boundaries, we run the risk of spreading ourselves too thin, becoming overwhelmed, and losing the ability to give in a way that is both healthy and sustainable. Think of boundaries as the invisible lines that separate your energy, needs, and priorities from those of others. When these lines are clear, we communicate to others how we wish to be treated and what we need to feel safe and respected. Boundaries allow us to safeguard our time and energy, protecting the resources that keep us healthy, emotionally balanced, and able to support others. They serve as the foundation for self-care, signaling to others and ourselves that our well-being matters. Many of us feel a sense of guilt around setting boundaries, especially with people we care about deeply. We may worry that by asserting our needs, we will disappoint others or let them down. This mindset can stem from cultural conditioning that promotes self-sacrifice as a virtue, especially when it comes to relationships. But the truth is that a lack of boundaries doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. When we continuously give at our own expense, we start to feel resentful, drained, and disconnected from our own needs. Over time, this erosion of self-care can lead to burnout and even damage our relationships, as we may begin to feel bitterness toward the very people we were once happy to support. Setting boundaries, then, is not an act of rejection or selfishness. It's a form of honoring yourself and your relationships. It means acknowledging your limitations and recognizing that, just like everyone else, you have needs that deserve respect. Establishing boundaries is a way of protecting your well-being, allowing you to recharge, and ensuring that you can give from a place of abundance rather than depletion. This makes your contributions more meaningful and your relationships more balanced. Boundaries can take many forms, from physical and emotional limits to time and energy constraints. For example, a physical boundary might involve limiting the amount of time you spend in crowded or overstimulating environments if you know they leave you feeling exhausted. So, emotional boundaries might involve distancing yourself from people who tend to be overly critical or unsupportive. Time and energy boundaries might involve limiting the number of social commitments you take on in a week to avoid feeling overextended. Each of these types of boundaries serves a specific purpose, allowing you to protect different aspects of your well-being. When we lack boundaries, we are more susceptible to being influenced by others' expectations and needs. This can lead to a constant state of people-pleasing where we prioritize the wants of others at the expense of our own needs. People-pleasing might seem like an act of kindness, but it often results in us neglecting ourselves, and it can lead to exhaustion and resentment. Setting boundaries helps us to maintain a sense of control over our own lives. It allows us to decide how much we are willing to give and when it's time to prioritize ourselves. By doing so, we remain in touch with our needs and are better able to care for ourselves and ultimately for others. Boundaries also encourage self-awareness. When we start to reflect on what we are willing to accept in different areas of our lives, we become more attuned to our values and priorities. This process requires us to consider what is most important to us, what drains us, and what fulfills us. Through this self-reflection, we learn to identify our limits and recognize when we're pushing ourselves too hard. Establishing boundaries, therefore, is not only a practice of self-care, but also a journey of self-discovery. Moreover, setting boundaries often requires having difficult conversations, especially with people who may be used to us being available whenever they need. It's natural for some people to resist or feel uncomfortable with these changes, particularly if they have been accustomed to us always saying yes. However, these conversations are an essential part of building healthy relationships. They allow others to see where we stand and understand that while we care for them, we also care for ourselves. When we set boundaries respectfully and openly, we model self-respect and empower others to set their own boundaries as well. There's a common misconception that boundaries create distance between people. However, in reality, boundaries can strengthen relationships by making them more balanced and respectful. When both people in a relationship have clear boundaries, they are less likely to feel taken for granted or resentful. Boundaries clarify expectations and prevent misunderstandings, which helps to build trust. People who respect each other's boundaries tend to feel more valued and secure within their relationships. Establishing boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially at first. It requires a level of vulnerability and courage as we open ourselves up to the possibility that some people may not understand or accept our boundaries right away. But over time, this discomfort fades as we begin to experience the benefits of living with boundaries. We feel more empowered, more in control of our lives, and more in tune with our needs. We become better at managing our time and energy, and we start to cultivate relationships that respect and appreciate us for who we are, not just for what we can give. Another important aspect of boundaries is that they are flexible and adaptable. Our needs and priorities change over time, and so should our boundaries. By regularly reassessing our boundaries, we can make adjustments that reflect our current circumstances, allowing us to continue protecting our well-being. Boundaries are not rigid walls, they are more like guidelines that we can modify as needed. Learning to say no is one of the most valuable skills we can develop in our lives. For many, the idea of saying no feels daunting, perhaps even uncomfortable. We often feel compelled to say yes to keep the peace, to avoid disappointing others, or out of a fear of seeming selfish or unkind. But in reality, saying no is not about shutting people out or disregarding their needs. It's about honoring your own time, energy, and well-being. It's about creating a life that aligns with your priorities and values rather than constantly bending to meet the expectations and demands of others. When we learn to say no confidently and without guilt, we free ourselves to live more authentically and sustainably. One reason many people struggle with saying no is the ingrained belief that they must always be agreeable or accommodating to be valued. This mindset can start early, as we're taught that being helpful and cooperative is positive. Over time, we internalize the idea that being liked or respected means being endlessly available and agreeable. But in truth, constantly saying yes at the expense of our own needs and priorities can lead to a life that feels unbalanced, exhausting, and ultimately unfulfilling. When we say yes to things that don't align with our values or needs, we are, in effect, saying no to ourselves. We are turning down opportunities to invest our time and energy in what truly matters to us. Saying no is an act of self-respect and self-care. It is about acknowledging that your time and energy are valuable resources, ones that deserve to be protected and used wisely. Each time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you are creating space for things that do. Whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a passion, or simply allowing yourself the chance to rest and recharge, saying no enables you to prioritize what brings you joy, fulfillment, and peace. It gives you control over your schedule and energy, allowing you to build a life that feels meaningful and aligned with your true self. Another critical reason to learn to say no is to avoid burnout. When we say yes too often, we can become overextended, taking on more responsibilities than we can realistically handle. This can lead to a constant state of stress as we try to juggle too many obligations and live up to the expectations we feel we've created for ourselves. Burnout doesn't just affect our energy levels, it can lead to decreased mental and emotional well-being, strained relationships, and a diminished sense of satisfaction in our lives. By saying no, when necessary, we protect ourselves from the exhaustion that comes from overcommitting, allowing us to be more present and engaged in the areas that truly matter. Learning to say no is also about setting boundaries. Boundaries are the limits we establish to protect our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They help us define what we are willing and able to take on, and they communicate to others what they can expect from us. When we set boundaries by saying no, we are drawing a line that protects our needs and ensures that we're not sacrificing our well-being for the sake of pleasing others. Boundaries are essential for healthy relationships as they prevent us from feeling resentful or taken advantage of. When we're clear about our limits, we're able to engage with others in a more honest and sustainable way. For many people, saying no is difficult because they fear the reaction of others. They worry about disappointing friends, family members, or colleagues, or about facing judgment for not being as accommodating. But it's important to remember that a respectful no is a healthy and necessary part of any relationship. People who truly care about you will understand that you have limits and will respect your decision. In fact, learning to say no often inspires others to set their own boundaries and prioritize their well-being. It models a behavior that encourages mutual respect, where everyone's needs are taken into account. Saying no doesn't have to be harsh or abrupt. It can be done in a gentle, respectful manner that still honors your boundaries. For instance, instead of an outright no, you can say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I won't be able to take this on at the moment." Or, "I appreciate the offer, but I need to focus on other commitments right now." These responses are polite yet firm, expressing gratitude while also making it clear that your time and energy are spoken for. Practicing these types of responses can help you become more comfortable with saying no without feeling like you're letting anyone down. Moreover, learning to say no helps us build a stronger relationship with ourselves. It allows us to become more in tune with our own values, needs, and goals. Each time we make a conscious decision to turn down something that doesn't serve us, we reaffirm our commitment to living authentically and purposefully. Saying no is a way of affirming our self-worth, of acknowledging that our time, energy, and mental space are precious resources that deserve to be invested wisely. It empowers us to live life on our terms rather than feeling at the mercy of external demands. In the end, saying no is not about rejecting others or shutting doors. It's about opening doors to the things that truly matter. It's about creating a life that is intentional, where each commitment we make is one that aligns with our deeper values and brings us closer to the person we want to be. When we say no to what doesn't serve us, we are effectively saying yes to ourselves and our growth. We are choosing to prioritize a life that is fulfilling, balanced, and aligned with our core beliefs. So, the next time you feel pressure to say yes, pause for a moment. Consider whether the request aligns with your priorities, whether you have the time and energy to commit, and how saying yes or no would affect your well-being. Remember that you have the right to set limits, to protect your resources, and to make choices that honor your true self. Saying no is not only a path to self-respect, it's a way of fostering a life that is intentional, balanced, and deeply aligned with who you are and who you aspire to be. Balancing kindness with self-respect is one of the most empowering and transformative practices we can adopt. Many people view kindness as an absolute, believing that being a good person means constantly putting others first, sacrificing our needs, and endlessly giving without expecting anything in return. However, true kindness is not about depleting ourselves or compromising our well-being for the sake of others. Instead, it's about finding a balance that allows us to be compassionate without losing sight of our own boundaries and self-respect. Balancing kindness with self-respect enables us to live more authentically, engage in healthier relationships, and cultivate a sense of peace and fulfillment. One common misconception is that kindness and self-respect are opposing forces, as if being kind means letting go of personal needs and boundaries. But in reality, self-respect enhances kindness. When we respect ourselves, we approach kindness from a place of abundance rather than from guilt or obligation. This approach allows us to be genuinely caring without feeling drained or resentful. Self-respect acts as a foundation that supports our capacity for kindness, enabling us to give to others while also preserving our own mental and emotional health. It's an approach that sustains kindness over the long term, making it something we can offer authentically rather than something we feel compelled to give at our own expense. Balancing kindness with self-respect requires that we acknowledge our limits. Just as we have physical limitations that guide us in caring for our bodies, we also have emotional and mental boundaries that help us preserve our well-being. When we fail to recognize these boundaries, we risk overextending ourselves, giving too much, and eventually becoming burnt out. Being overly generous or constantly saying yes can make us feel valuable in the short term, but over time, it can lead to exhaustion and frustration. By respecting our own limits, we ensure that we have the energy and capacity to offer genuine kindness when it truly matters, rather than spreading ourselves too thin and becoming resentful. Moreover, balancing kindness with self-respect helps us maintain healthier, more balanced relationships. In any relationship, whether with family, friends, colleagues, or romantic partners, there is a natural give and take. When we respect ourselves, we set clear boundaries that prevent others from taking advantage of our kindness. Without these boundaries, we may find ourselves in one-sided relationships where our needs and feelings are overlooked while we constantly attend to others' needs. This imbalance can lead to resentment as we start to feel that our kindness is being taken for granted. By setting boundaries and communicating our needs openly, we create relationships based on mutual respect, where kindness flows both ways. Self-respect also protects us from becoming enablers. When we constantly say yes to others, even when it's not in our best interest, we may unintentionally encourage dependency. People may come to expect our constant support and attention, and they may even rely on it to the point where they stop taking responsibility for their own actions or problems. In this way, excessive kindness can actually harm both parties. It places an unfair burden on us and prevents others from growing and learning to handle their own responsibilities. Balancing kindness with self-respect allows us to offer help in a way that supports others without enabling them, empowering both ourselves and those we care for. A major aspect of balancing kindness with self-respect is learning to say no when necessary. Many people find it difficult to refuse requests, fearing that they'll appear selfish or unkind. However, saying no is not an act of rejection or disregard. It's an acknowledgement of our limitations and a way of honoring our commitments to ourselves. By saying no to things that don't align with our values or priorities, we're making room for what truly matters. This not only allows us to show up fully in the areas that are most important to us, but it also enables us to give to others in a way that is genuine and sustainable. Balancing kindness with self-respect also involves taking responsibility for our own happiness and well-being. When we rely on external validation or approval, we may fall into a pattern of excessive kindness, hoping that our generosity will earn us the love and acceptance we crave. However, true self-respect means realizing that our worth is not dependent on others' opinions or on how much we do for them. By cultivating a sense of self-worth that is independent of others' expectations, we free ourselves from the need to please others constantly. This internal sense of value allows us to practice kindness in a way that is not motivated by a need for external validation, but rather by a genuine desire to make a positive impact. Practicing kindness with self-respect requires us to check in with ourselves regularly and to stay aware of our motivations. Are we helping others out of genuine compassion? Or are we saying yes because we fear disappointing them? Are we being kind because it aligns with our values, or are we trying to win approval? Reflecting on these questions helps us ensure that our kindness comes from a place of authenticity and alignment with our true self, rather than from external pressures. By staying mindful of our motivations, we cultivate a practice of kindness that is both meaningful and sustainable. Being authentic rather than simply agreeable can be challenging, especially in a society that often values conformity and politeness over self-expression. Many people grow up feeling that in order to fit in or be liked, they need to agree with others, hide aspects of themselves, or adjust their opinions to avoid conflict. However, living authentically means embracing your true self, including your unique beliefs, thoughts, and desires, even when they don't align with what's expected or widely accepted. This can be difficult, but the rewards are immense. Being authentic rather than merely agreeable leads to a more genuine sense of fulfillment, deeper relationships, and a clearer sense of purpose. Living authentically begins with knowing yourself. It's difficult to be true to yourself if you haven't taken the time to reflect on who you are, what you believe, and what you want in life. Self-awareness is the foundation of authenticity. It's the process of understanding your core values, recognizing your strengths, and acknowledging areas you'd like to improve. Many people struggle with authenticity not because they're trying to be dishonest, but because they aren't fully sure of who they are. They may be influenced by societal expectations, family values, or peer pressure without questioning whether these influences truly align with their own beliefs and desires. Taking the time to explore your own mind through journaling, meditation, or personal reflection helps you get in touch with your authentic self. Authenticity also involves embracing your own opinions and ideas, even when they differ from those of the people around you. This doesn't mean that you have to argue with others or refuse to listen to different perspectives. On the contrary, authenticity and open-mindedness go hand in hand. It's possible to respect and consider others' opinions without feeling pressure to adopt them as your own. Being authentic means having the courage to speak your truth and express your genuine feelings, even if they're unpopular or go against the grain. This might look like standing up for your beliefs in a meeting, voicing an honest opinion in a conversation with friends, or making choices that align with your values rather than doing what others expect. One challenge many people face in pursuing authenticity is the fear of rejection. It's natural to want to be liked and accepted, and sometimes we compromise our own authenticity to avoid rocking the boat. However, being agreeable at the expense of authenticity can lead to feelings of emptiness and dissatisfaction. When we constantly prioritize others' expectations over our own, we might find ourselves living a life that feels unfulfilling or disconnected from our true selves. Being authentic may not always make everyone like you, but it attracts the people who appreciate and respect you for who you truly are. Those are the relationships worth building, the ones based on mutual respect, honesty, and a genuine connection. Authenticity is also crucial in building self-respect. When we compromise our values or hide our true selves to keep the peace or gain approval, we send a message to ourselves that our own thoughts, feelings, and desires are not important. Over time, this can lead to a diminished sense of self-worth. Being authentic, on the other hand, is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I am worthy of being seen and heard just as I am. By embracing authenticity, we learn to value our own voice, trust our own judgment, and accept ourselves fully, flaws and all. This self-acceptance builds confidence and resilience, empowering us to face life's challenges with a stronger sense of who we are. Another benefit of authenticity is the clarity it brings. When you're not constantly trying to please others or second-guessing yourself, you gain a clearer sense of direction in life. Making decisions becomes easier because you're guided by your own values and desires rather than external expectations. You begin to pursue goals that are meaningful to you rather than those imposed by others. This sense of clarity allows you to make choices that are aligned with your purpose, leading to a life that feels more intentional and fulfilling. Instead of drifting along or following the crowd, you carve out your own path, one that reflects your unique vision for your life. Of course, authenticity doesn't mean that we should disregard others' feelings or ignore the importance of empathy. It's entirely possible to be both authentic and kind. The key is to communicate with honesty and compassion. When we express ourselves authentically, we can do so in a way that is respectful and considerate. For example, if you disagree with someone, you can share your perspective without attacking theirs. If you need to set a boundary, you can do so with kindness rather than defensiveness. Authenticity, when combined with empathy, creates interactions that are honest yet respectful, fostering deeper understanding and connection. Practicing authenticity can be a gradual process, especially if you're used to being agreeable and accommodating. Start by making small changes, perhaps by expressing a true opinion in a low-stakes situation, setting a small boundary, or taking a step toward a goal that matters to you. With each step, you'll build confidence in your ability to be authentic, and you'll likely find that it feels liberating. Over time, these small acts of authenticity add up, transforming your relationships, your sense of self, and your overall quality of life. Each time you choose authenticity over agreeableness, you're reinforcing your commitment to live a life that is true to who you are. Finally, authenticity is a journey, not a destination. As we grow and evolve, our understanding of ourselves may change, and that's perfectly okay. Being authentic means embracing this evolution and allowing ourselves to change without feeling constrained by past choices or expectations. Living authentically is about continuously learning, growing, and staying true to our current self. It's about having the courage to be who we are in each moment, even as that self evolves. Rather than feeling pressured to maintain a fixed identity, we can embrace the fluidity of life, understanding that authenticity is about being true to our genuine self at each stage of our journey. In the end, choosing authenticity over agreeableness is about honoring ourselves and our unique place in the world. It's about living in alignment with our values, our beliefs, and our true desires. When we make this choice, we step into a life that feels rich with meaning and purpose, where our actions and choices resonate with our inner truth. By embracing authenticity, we create a life that not only feels fulfilling to us, but also inspires others to be true to themselves. Authenticity may not always be easy, but it is always worth it, bringing a sense of fulfillment and joy that can only come from living a life that is truly our own. Building self-respect involves treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and value that you often extend to others. It's a fundamental component of self-worth, encompassing everything from personal boundaries to inner dialogue. Yet, for many people, self-respect can be challenging to maintain. People may feel that they have to earn the right to respect themselves by achieving specific goals or meeting certain standards. However, self-respect is not conditional. It's a mindset and practice that comes from within, and one that enhances every area of life when embraced wholeheartedly. At the heart of self-respect is the understanding that you are inherently worthy, deserving of care, and entitled to be treated well, even by yourself. Society often teaches us to prioritize the needs, feelings, and opinions of others, and while empathy and consideration for others are valuable, they should not come at the expense of self-respect. Many people fall into the trap of consistently putting others first, often believing it's selfish to do otherwise. However, a lack of self-respect can lead to feelings of resentment, stress, and burnout. Respecting yourself requires a commitment to your well-being, even when it feels uncomfortable or when others may not fully understand. A key component of self-respect is setting boundaries, which involves identifying what is and isn't acceptable to you and communicating those limits to others. This is not always easy. Many people feel guilty or uncomfortable about setting boundaries, worried they might be seen as rude or uncooperative. But boundaries are essential for self-respect. They are a way of telling others and yourself that you value your time, energy, and emotional health. By setting boundaries, you protect yourself from situations and people that might drain or harm you, making space for the things that truly matter. Healthy boundaries prevent people from overstepping and allow you to feel safe and respected in relationships, whether personal or professional. Another essential aspect of self-respect is positive self-talk. It's incredibly common for people to be hard on themselves, often without even realizing it. Internalized criticism can be damaging to self-worth over time, leaving a person feeling inadequate or unworthy. Many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to others, using language that's harsh, dismissive, or belittling. Practicing positive self-talk doesn't mean ignoring areas where you can improve, but it does mean approaching yourself with compassion and understanding. It's about treating yourself as you would a friend, recognizing your efforts, acknowledging your strengths, and gently encouraging growth without harsh judgment. This shift in inner dialogue fosters a healthier, more respectful relationship with yourself. Self-respect also requires self-care, and not just the kind that involves relaxation or indulgence. True self-care involves meeting your needs consistently, whether those needs are physical, emotional, or mental. When you respect yourself, you make choices that prioritize your health and well-being, even when it means saying no to things that others might want you to do or avoiding habits that don't serve you. This could mean taking breaks when you're tired, seeking help when you're overwhelmed, or making lifestyle choices that align with your values and goals. Real self-care is about nurturing yourself in meaningful ways, not just occasionally, but as a regular practice. A significant part of building self-respect is learning to assert yourself. This doesn't mean being confrontational, but rather being able to communicate your thoughts, feelings, and needs openly and honestly. People who struggle with self-respect often have difficulty expressing themselves, fearing judgment or conflict. They might stay quiet when they disagree or hold back when they feel mistreated. However, when you respect yourself, you understand that your voice matters and you give yourself permission to use it. Assertiveness is about valuing your perspective and ensuring that others recognize it too. It's about showing up as your full self and standing up for what you believe in, regardless of the outcome. Self-respect is also deeply connected to the standards you hold for yourself. People who respect themselves have a set of principles they live by, a personal code that guides their actions and decisions. This might include values like honesty, kindness, responsibility, or integrity. When you respect yourself, you hold yourself accountable to these standards, not to prove something to others, but because these values matter to you. This commitment to your own standards strengthens your self-respect over time. It means that you're living a life that's aligned with your beliefs, not swayed by outside pressures or changing circumstances. Another way to cultivate self-respect is by acknowledging your achievements and giving yourself credit for the hard work and effort you put into your goals. People are often quick to celebrate others, but reluctant to celebrate themselves. They downplay their accomplishments or brush off their successes as not a big deal. However, Recognizing your own achievements is an essential part of self-respect. It's about honoring your journey, the challenges you've overcome, and the growth you've experienced.